Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We officially had 2 negative quarters of GDP, and we are officially in a recession, or at least that's how it was defined, 2 negative quarters of GDP in a row. That's how it's been defined for decades. But right before the second quarter results came out, the White House released this. What is a recession? While some maintain that 2 consecutive quarters of falling real GDP constitute a recession, that is neither the official definition nor the way economists evaluate the state of the business cycle. Instead, both official determinations of recessions and economists' assessment of economic activity are based on a holistic look at the data, including the labor market, consumer and business spending, industrial production, and incomes. Based on these data, it is unlikely that the decline in GDP in the first quarter of this year, even if followed by another GDP decline in the second quarter, indicates a recession. Now, the White House must have already had received the data on the second quarter before they released this, because they released this information or this news release days before the actual GDP was the GDP data for the second quarter was released. So they knew it was coming. Now, by changing the definition from 2 negative quarters of GDP to this more holistic approach of using a combination of labor market, consumer and business spending, industrial production, and incomes, is that it becomes very vague. By doing that, we really, your opinion as to whether we are in a recession can be different than my opinion. And to be quite honest, I don't think it really matters. We could stick to the 2 negative quarters, and yes, they were very slight negatives, and I could understand how you can make the argument that it's not a recession, but it doesn't matter. Let's just continue to define it that way, because at the end of the day, it is what it is. We could use a recession. Now, why do people feel that we're not in a recession? Well, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, when he was asked about it, he said, "I do not think the U.S. is currently in a recession, and the reason is there are too many areas of the economy that are performing too well." Powell said at a press conference following the Fed's decision to raise rates to 0.75 percentage point for a second consecutive time. Now, he said this is a very strong labor market. It doesn't make sense that the economy would be in a recession with this kind of thing happening. So that's kind of been the push, is that's his holistic view, is that labor market's strong. Unemployment is low. And if you look at the data, you'll see that unemployment is at record lows. 3.5%, somewhere around there. That is incredibly low. But to be quite honest, I don't think it matters what the unemployment rate is. I don't think the economy has as much to do with it. What I believe is happening now is that baby boomers are retiring at record pace, and they're going to continue to retire at a record pace. This great resignation, as they call it, is about halfway through. It started back in 2010, and it's going to continue at even higher numbers for the next 7-ish years. So we're going to continue to see unemployment very low. And it has nothing to do with the economy. It has everything to do with the largest generation retiring at record pace. So what does that mean? That means that we are going to struggle at finding people. There's just going to be more job openings than there are going to be people able to fill those jobs. And here's a graph from the Federal Reserve that shows that. The blue line is job openings, and the red line is the unemployment level. And this is the first time since they started tracking job openings in the year 2000. This is the first time ever where there are more job openings than there is unemployment. So that means that there's just not enough people out there. If every unemployed person took a job, there'd still be a significant amount of jobs that are open. And that's going to continue because the baby boomers are retiring. I mean, it's as simple as that. And what does that mean? Well, people can choose their jobs. And so we have record number of people quitting their jobs. And why are record number of people quitting their jobs? Well, when you have a CPI, inflation, that on this graph, this is through May, at 8.5%. Now it's 9.1%. And the average increase in salary for employees is about 5.2%. Employees are feeling like they're losing 3% per year because inflation is just higher than their raise. So they quit because what they're also discovering is that their greatest increase in pay is when they take another job. As you see on this graph, most workers who changed employers are seeing real gains in earnings into 2022. So when employees left for a new employer, they are seeing a 9.7% increase in their salary, whereas the employees that stay with the current employer, a loss of about 1.7%. So that's certainly concerning for any business owner, I'm sure. So what do you got to do about it? Well, first and foremost, I'm a CPA. I've looked at thousands and thousands of profit and loss statements over the years. And in the top 3 expenses of every one of those profit and loss statements that I've looked at is always labor. And usually it's the top 1 or 2 expense. You got to get the most out of your labor. You should be doing this anyways. But tracking time, creating measurables, creating key performance indicators that play into the efficiency of labor and their time is incredibly important. If that is not being done, if you don't even know where to start, well, contact me and I will be more than happy to help you with that because it's critical. It's a huge investment and you want to get the most out because you're not going to get the opportunity to find a lot of good labor out there. Another tip, what a lot of small business owners are doing that are successful at finding employees is that they're using their social media to attract their competitors' employees. They're showing their competitors' employees how much of a better team they have, how much more fun they're having, how much of a greater working environment and culture they have. It's not always about money. So consider that when you're using your social media, that sometimes instead of a customer, maybe you want to attract your competitors' employees as well. Offer your employees the same quality and service you offer your customers. Treat them like human beings. Communicate with them. Keep your finger on the pulse of how they're doing. Talk to them. This is the time where, because of the shortage of labor, it's easy to not talk to your employees because you're so busy. But this is the time when you have to do it the most. Service your employees like you service your customers. It's incredibly important. And you know what the pandemic did for all businesses is it exposed a major gap in just about everybody's business, that there are not enough processes in place where we're training and growing our employees to become those managers that we need, to become that next level of skill set that we need. So this is a longer term approach, this one, but create your own bench by building a process for training. Build them from the ground up. When you do that, it's worth it because now they're already part of the culture. They understand how the company runs, and it just makes it a lot easier. if you start from the bottom up. And don't forget, remember, it's not always about money. But you do want to pay a fair wage. It's important to pay a fair wage. As you saw in the one graph, people are getting very large increases in salary just by leaving. And as long as there's going to be more job openings than there are people available, they're going to learn and continue to do this and jump to a new job. So be mindful of that. And hopefully this helps you. I'm in it with you, and we're going to be dealing with this for the next 5 to 7 years. So do your best at keeping your best team. I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.